Neil Ross here, and it's time to get altered and get geeky on Altered Geek with Steve Megatron.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me on this endeavor into crazy geekdom is Mike the BirdmanDodd.
That's right, joining you from thisweekingeek.net, also terriblewarriors.com, your resident geek, nerd, dork, dweeb, and what other derogatory terms you want to call me. I'm here to serve your needs, and sometimes something else. You just have to ask and pay a little bit extra.
That's what she said.
Oh boy. So what's up?
So, for those that are listening to this episode, yes, we recorded this out of sequence of release, and what I mean by that is there'll have been an episode that's released the week that this was recorded, but I recorded another Altered Geek prior to this one earlier in the same week, so it sounds very convoluted, but it's funny. Because I was like, covering the news sucks.
Everybody does that. We do that at Twig. So if you want to do news, we do that every week. You come to Altered Geek for discussion.
Yeah, and I mean, I've tried to sprinkle in as the show's like evolving a little bit after the 300 mark. I'm kind of trying to see where things go, and what's sticking and what's sounding like it's dragging too much, and what segments I want to do. But yeah, I'm going to put interesting twists on some of them just to make it better, as it were. But yeah, it's definitely an evolution, like trial and error, seeing what gets downloads and what doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, as people who've been involved in radio before, segments evolve, segments change, people change how they produce their content. And because we want to make it more interesting for you, the listeners, we always encourage interaction via me and Steve on Twitter. I mean, he's at SCP21, I'm at BirdmanDodd, and there is the Altered Geek feedback email as well. And you can comment on episode posts, but we're trying to get you to be more involved. And like Steve said, getting things, part of evolving is change, and be that change good, bad, or indifferent. It's kind of like puberty. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it's fun. And, well, we're just trying to make things better overall.
Definitely. And speaking of some things that's trying to make itself better, Star Trek's Twitter handle is having fun right now because they're having the Klingon takeover for what I suspect is a mobile game.
Oh, goody, because we need more of those.
Well, the thing is it came out last month, or I should say actually in end of September, and it's Star Trek Fleet Command, which, if you misspell, can almost get mistaken for that 1999 Interplay Star Trek Starfleet Command.
Which was an awesome game, and one of the first PC games I ever owned. I think I've seen ads for this on Facebook, but then again, for mobile games, it's weird. The only ones I play are like Pokemon Go clones. I'm playing Ghostbusters, Walking Dead, and Pokemon, and that's it. Star Trek, maybe I'll check out.
Yeah, see, my whole thing is it's like the Command and Conquer thing. Like, I was a huge fan of the Command and Conquer series back in the day, and when EA took over the studio that makes them, I think it's Westwood One or something like that, or Westwood or something. Anyways, they made the next game in the series and made the fatal mistake of putting it on mobile.
I remember watching that E3 presentation, and I remember the poor guy who was up there doing it, and he's like, "Are you guys excited for mobile Command and Conquer?" And you could hear crickets. It was so friggin' bad. And I actually just got an email about this the other day. It's like, "Hey guys, Command and Conquer launches in December. Guess what? It's 6 months later, and nobody still gives a shit." Which is kind of tragic.
Well, and the thing is I love the game. But to me, playing Command & Conquer is almost like a mandatory has to be a PC game.
Yeah, or if you're going to port it to console, it better be highly optimized.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is they've had it on console before, and I've tried playing it, and it's just miserable.
I think I liked the one that was on the PlayStation 3. I think it was Was it Red Alert? I forget whatever the hell it was called, and I thought it was all right. But yeah, I mean, a title like that, like especially RTS, has to be PC. You need keyboard and mouse. I mean, I've seen a few games attempt to do RTS on a console with middling success. One of the games I played this year, I wish I could remember what the hell it was called, but it was something called Strike. Some stupid World War II game. It was so badly optimized. Like, trying to map keyboard and mouse controls to an Xbox controller does not work. Command and Conquer, trying to make that work on a mobile phone. I mean, sure, it's been simplified right out the ass, but this game looks so stupid.
I concur. I am not a fan of seeing this happen, especially to such a series that had such a strong legacy.
And you know it's going to be microtransaction right out the ass.
Which all of them are anymore. Let's be real. Most games nowadays are microtransactions, and that's where they make their money. However...
Well, as long as it's not pay to win, if it's cosmetic, which it won't be, and it's EA, which means it will be microtransaction out the friggin' butthole, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, I guess.
But I think they learned their lesson on the Battlefield games.
Yeah, and Battlefront 2, because they got kicked in the face.
Well, in Battlefield 1 to Battlefield or to 5, they decided not to do like where everybody's on the kind of same playing field, and it's more of a cosmetic thing than a fight to win.
Yeah.
Or pay to win. And so like I feel like this game is going to bomb horribly, and then they're going to be like, okay, so either we can not make another Command and Conquer game, or we should go back to PC. And that's, to me, like, I'm still playing Red Alert 2, which is like ancient, and then I'm playing like the expansion to that still. Like I have them, and I have the entire Command and Conquer collection on EA All Access. I bought it like a while back. They had a special on it, and I bought the whole package. And so, like, to me, like, I've enjoyed the series enough that I would go back and play like really any of them. And to see it go that down the toilet, I'm kind of like, and that's kind of the same boat I am. Like, they made a Transformers game that was kind of in that same boat, and a DC game, and they've made, like, there's a couple Star Trek games that are doing this now. And to be honest, like, I would rather that they put all of this R&D into a good PC and console game than doing what they're doing.
It's because mobile games are cheap and easy to develop. They're easy to microtransaction, and all I need is a few good whales, people who spend a lot of money to make it profitable to keep it going. But since we're talking about EA, I wanted to bring this up because I'm really curious to see what you'll think of this. So, EA has Battlefield V or 5 or whatever the hell it's called coming out later on this month.
Yep, 5.
Cool. You're not getting your Battle Royale mode until the spring.
That's okay. I'm not buying it.
This game is going to get crushed over Fortnite and Call of Duty. And I can't believe they're going to release it without their Battle Royale mode. I would have delayed it until fourth quarter and had the sales bump up right at the end of the year. Because there's no point in releasing it in a crowded holiday season, in my opinion, if you don't have the thing that's going to make it stand out against its competitors.
No, I totally agree with you. And to be honest, my brother actually canceled his pre-order and opted just to go with the EA All Access pass so that he could play other games under EA rather than deal with it, because Battlefield 1 kind of left a poor taste in a lot of the players' mouths after they got their feel of it. And they were like, okay, this is like a one-trick pony, like, I'm done. And a lot of them went back to play Battlefield 3 and 4.
Wow, what a kick in the face.
And even when the game was new, they were going back and playing Battlefield 3 and 4. Like, they were just like, eh. And then, I played in a clan, like a group, and the Fast Action Response Team, go figure on the acronym. But they all were like, I'm good. Like, they kind of went back and started playing the other one, and a lot of them are very disinterested in Battlefield 5, and a lot of it had to do with a lot of the announcements that were surrounding it.
I gotta say, like, unless it has some monumentally epic single player campaign, which it likely will have a really good single player, no one cares. This year is dominated by multiplayer, and Fortnite's still doing amazingly well. Blackout. Well, that's what everybody's playing. Call of Duty Black Ops is doing tremendously well. The CWL, which is the competitive league for Call of Duty, starts up in December. So I'll be very interested to see how the competitive community takes this, because I like Battlefield's competitive feel, but I don't think it's not at the esports level yet. At least as far as I can see it, but I'm not in that particular competitive circle. So,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I really like the previous games in the series. I really like Battlefield.
I loved Hardline personally.
See, I didn't even have those games. I pretty much started playing around. I think I played when 1942 was out, like on the GameCube and like the PC when it was like new. And I played with my brother on that, and it had a lot of like some of the aspects that are in like Battlefield 1 were involved, at least in some of the design areas. But same token, my family got me involved when Battlefield 4 came out and all the expansions, and that's kind of when I decided that, hey, I'm going to play the Battlefield series again, and it was a lot of fun, and I did the whole thing with Battlefield 1 as well, and I enjoyed it, and I played. I even got alpha and beta access, and the trial of EA All Access right up until Battlefield 1 came out, and then I got that in an expansion, and then after that, it kind of after a while started getting old, and then when the expansions came out, they really sucked, to be honest. There was nothing really drawing you to really want to play the new levels that were in it. They were just, I don't know, like unbearably bad, like to the point that I would rather just go back and play Battlefield 4. And so I guess it's kind of going full circle. I think that's kind of what's starting to kill Battlefield and where Call of Duty faltered when Battlefield 1 came out. So, I mean, I think that the roles have reversed. And especially the funny thing is Epic was the one that kind of had one of the best first person things for going for a while, and that was Unreal Tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And they've since come out with Fortnite, which is kind of their pony show now, where they're kind of running the arena now with the first person thing again, like they did when you used to watch like television and see esports with like Unreal Tournament 2004. And so it's kind of come full circle with the Epic.
Yeah, like one of the things I love about Fortnite is it's got such an interesting competitive scene. As of this recording, TwitchCon has just recently concluded, and they had Fortnite events at TwitchCon. They had the streamer invitational. They invited content creators, some pros, and some people who were just good streamers playing Fortnite. And there were people who could team up with their favorite streamer if they got like a golden ticket or something like that. And it's interesting to watch the meta evolve. Like basically people who are really, you could tell who's a really good streamer and who is a pro. People weren't engaging in gunfights, stuff like that. Like there was no incentive for kills, but that's me talking about the competitive meta. But what I'm trying to get at is Epic has captured this cartoony violence that doesn't have violence. I mean, sure, you're still shooting people, but there's no blood. It's animated enough for kids and just hardcore enough for adults like us to get into. Now, Fortnite is a game I've dumped maybe $30 into. I gave up on it when Call of Duty 4 came out, or when Black Ops came out, because I'm terrible at building. The Battle Royale mode, Blackout, which is basically PUBG, but it works, is really fantastic. I'm really curious to see how that's going to evolve in the esports scene. But Treyarch has a lot of they're really going to have to work on fixing things like audio cues and everything. Whereas Fortnite, you can do hot fixes on the fly. There's the seasons every other like month or so. It seems like that game prints money, and it's not pay to win. You're just buying cosmetic items. There are people who can sell their accounts because they have so many skins. Their battle pass is ranked up right up the ass. Stuff like that. There's like the Skull Trooper skin that's ridiculous. There's like this Galaxy skin that you could only get from buying a certain phone, which was really funny. There were people going into stores to demo the phone. They'd log in on the phone in the store into their Fortnite account, steal the skin, and then the phone was like, oh, I don't want this anymore. And the skin is now permanently locked to their account. So there's a way to screw people, by the way. Don't do it, kids, because that's bad. But it's not... I've heard of people doing that for other things, but I can't think of the examples off the top of my head. But I know people are... If there's a way to screw the system, people will find it.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway... So we've rambled on a lot.
Yeah, so kind of going back full circle to the whole Star Trek mobile game.
Yes.
When I noticed that they started having their little Klingon takeover on the thing to kind of boost promotion of their account, which, by the way, the account that's associated with the whole thing is it barely had any followers when I looked at it earlier today. It has 147 followers for the Star Trek Fleet, which is Star Trek Fleet Command. And then there's another one that's Klingon Council or Klingon Victory on Twitter, which is Klingon High Council, and it's got 499 followers. And then I guess they've got a Romulans one too, but it's all like very Kelvin universe. Like they've got Kelvin Scotty, and then they've got like a bunch of like the Kelvin design ships. And so I kind of made like a snarky remark, like they were talking, every member of at Federations, unite will wear a red tunic when we spill their blood in battle, cannon fodder, blah, blah, blah. And I says, why are all the ships Kelvin universe? And they had another thing of, if you're reading this, you still have a chance to choose your manner of demise. How would you wish to die? Batleth, orbital strike, the dagger, and then eating by targs. And then I just posted like a gif of Data laughing hysterically. And so like I wasn't even really replying. I was doing like passive aggressive posts, but using like Star Trek gifs. It says, we laugh at you pathetic humans and your precious Twitter. It took us mere seconds to take control of this account. How long do you think it will take to infiltrate your Federation defense protocols? And so I posted the clip from Star Trek 6 where Kirk's like, he goes, don't believe them. Don't trust them.
See, you should use swear Trek, but I guess they want to keep this PG.
Which is why I was using like clips from the show. They had another thing. It says, there is no honor at Twitter. We tweet only to proclaim that the end of the Federation is at hand. And then I did the thing where Kirk goes fire, and they fire the torpedo from the Enterprise, and it blows up the Klingon ship. There was one other good jab I got in there that got retweeted a bunch of times. That's where it is. They had Crudge like choking Kirk in Star Trek 3, which was Christopher Lloyd. And then it says Throwback Thursday Klingon Takeover. And so I says, you do realize the Klingons almost always end up 6 feet or more under when dealing with Kirk or humans in general. And people thought that was kind of funny, but because Crudge ended up more than 6 feet under. He was on Genesis.
Yeah, but so yeah, he's kind of completely screwed.
Yeah, he was Space Oblivion. So yeah, it was quite funny. I was having fun with that earlier today, among other things that were going on. But yeah, so I guess we should get on to the actual topics of the show.
Yes, the actual topic of the show. So Steve messaged me earlier this week and said, okay, Mike, we're going to change things up here in Altered Geek. We're going to have a few discussion points, if we will, kind of give you our thoughts, feelings, and opinions on certain topics suggested, not just by you, the listeners, but sort of us sort of having meetings of the minds between ourselves. And the topics that we've chosen to speak about today are 3 things kind of very near and dear to me and Steve. And it's going to be, would you ever go back to a dumb phone? So we're talking pre-smartphone, so think pre-2006. Basically, getting into the media and radio is hard, to which me and Steve can both speak to that extensively. And finally, what are goals for geek life? So basically looking at adaptation, evolution, and then kind of settling off into the sunset for something a little bit happier, something a little bit more positive as we look at geek positive goals for our lives. So I guess let's kind of start the discussion. Would you ever go back to a dumb phone? And I kind of want to start this off simply because, you know what? If we all had dumb phones, you know how much better the universe might be? Because let me tell you, and this is the only time I'm going to get political in this entire conversation. If your president had to type out old school text numbers, like if you had to enter 9 like 5 times to enter Z or Z or whatever, I'm pretty sure Twitter would be a lot quieter a place if you had to type out those 100 or those 200 characters, and it will take you like 20 minutes to type out a single tweet. It would be a friggin' ghost town.
Typing in QWERTY keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for. QWERTY. Yeah, I mean, just think about
love it.
that. Or if we didn't have Snapchat, basically, if we went back to dumb phones, social media would not exist. Now, that being said, I used to live journal on my phone with a QWERTY. I am a glutton for punishment, so there are people like me who exist.
You destroyed your hands.
Oh my God, they were so cramped. And I'm talking, I would write easily 1,000 words a day on my live journal because I'm an emo kid. So just imagine a world without smartphones. But that also means no Snapchat, so you can't instantly reply. That means no Twitter, no Facebook. The world would be so different. It would be such a different media landscape to look back at it. And in a certain way, I kind of wish we could go back to a more innocent time. Don't you?
You know, that's, and I guess that's kind of the same boat I'm in. I feel like if we put less emphasis on being attached to our devices, and I'm guilty of it. Like I'm horribly guilty of it as well. Because there's not a minute that goes by that I'm not thinking I should check to see if I've got an email. I should check to see if and I've turned off most of my notifications other than email. And when I turn on the screen, like other than email and text, but when I turn on the screen, I'll have like notifications for like Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff like that. But it ultimately, it's like it's a constant anxiety in the back of your head that you have to check something. And they've got it embedded in our heads because we've, and I used to complain when I had a dumb phone. And this is my second smartphone. The thing is I've had a smartphone for about 6 years. And yes, it was more of a pain when I needed to check my email on the go or my Twitter or things like that because I didn't have internet on my phone. And the new modern flip phones do have Wi-Fi and 4G LTE, unlike the old stuff, because you can still use it with your data plans and whatnot. But I feel like a lot of these problems that we're having now with people just being constantly on would go away because you wouldn't have all of these people just constantly blowing smoke into the ether and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, like I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm trying to reduce my screen time, but even now, while we're doing the show, I'm tweeting. It's so hard to disconnect. And I don't know, it's so weird because kids these days do not understand that. They've grown up in this era of the smartphone. And like, hell, do you remember when the T-Mobile Sidekick was a thing?
Vaguely.
Like way back in like it was a huge device because you could text so fast. These kids have grown up in this era of texting, instant messaging, social media. Well, you and I grew up in the era before that.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in the era where we had like almost like the monochrome cell phone, the stationary monochrome cell phone that just sucked and it was huge like a TV remote.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we grew up in the Matrix era of phones.
Yeah, and then like because I remember that, and I remember my first flip phone. You had to pull the
antenna out.
The antenna out, and it was the green screen type thing, and I was playing chess on my phone. and that was literally the only thing to do on the phone because like I managed to. I think it came with chess, and I was like, oh, I can play a game on here, and to me that was like a game, you know, and so. And then I was typing in the QWERTY keyboard, which was just a royal pain, and I hated text messaging because of it. I was
You just reminded me of something, speaking of games, and QWERTY keyboard specifically. What's the most difficult game you could think to play on a QWERTY keyboard? Off the top of your head.
First-person shooter.
Okay, close. I played on a QWERTY keyboard Mega Man 2.
Oh, that's awesome. But
I beat the son of a bitch with a QWERTY keyboard. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Now, trying to imagine trying to fight that dragon boss or those jumps in Wily Stage 3. Good friggin' luck. If I remember correctly, and I'm 90% sure that I remember this right. But yeah, I mean, I remember when games evolved on those phones, when there was like Snake, chess, and solitaire, and that started out into the 2000s. Then once you got people like Nokia and stuff like that, like developing different phones, and the flip phones came out with different games and stuff on them. Then you had that weird hybrid, which was like a taco you could talk into, which was the Nokia N-Gage. And then you started getting the first generation of Android and smartphones like the iPhone, which is 2008, 2009, give or take. Things have changed so rapidly.
And they have. And not only have the phones and the landscape changed, I mean, between the data, I remember the data was like not a lot. Like between like an entire account, like it was barely what it is now. And then and then they bumped it to unlimited, and then they realized once the smartphone revolution started that that was really dumb, and they didn't have the infrastructure to back it up, so they backpedaled on it, and then now they've got it again because they have the infrastructure. But
we don't have that in Canada because we get screwed so bad. Like the worst when this was in the era of the smartphone-ish on my old iPhone 3G. Guess how much I had in data overages 1 month?
I don't want to guess, but
$900.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Let's just say my parents were none too happy with me. They're like, Michael, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean?
I went over like $75, and then my parents were like, okay, we're taking your phone. And so like my instant response to that was, you can take my phone and shove it. Well, no, because I, being a rebellistic, teenager at the time, not much different than now. It is, I went to Cricket Wireless because you only had to be 16 to go get a cell phone.
Whoa, you showed them.
I did, and. I went and paid cash for my phone, bought it outright, like $200. I was like, I don't care. I got money in the bank. And like, I was working, so I didn't really care either. And then I paid for the monthly plan. I come home with a new cell phone, and I'd spent like 3 hours that evening, like manually typing in all of my contacts from one phone to the other. And then I walk in the house and I give the other phone back to my mom, and she's like, what's this? That's your phone. I says, not anymore. And then,
touche, mofo.
I did. And then when I got in trouble the next time they took my phone away, talking to my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and I was rather upset. They took my phone. I was like, I bought the phone. They're like, you're in my house. And I'm like, don't want to be here. And so it was really funny, because how your brain works when you're a kid. But yeah, I mean, I remember going through all those different stages of the phone thing and then finally going to, multiple flip phones up until 2012 when I got my HTC Evo, which was utter garbage.
My favorite flip phone was the Motorola Razr because everybody had one.
I still, did you know that thing goes for like $300 on eBay or not eBay, Amazon?
Why?
I don't know. That's what
Is it just super reliable or something?
I will give you this. That was by far my most favorite phone that I'd ever had. It looks like you can buy one. Oh, you can buy a couple of used ones actually now, for anywhere from $20 to $50, but the original one, mind you. But yeah, it's. I remember when they came out with the Razr 2.
Yep.
Which didn't really go over as well as the first one.
There is one phone I would trade my iPhone for now, and I would rely on a tablet exclusively if I could have this phone. The Matrix phone from the Matrix Reloaded, the one or the first Matrix where it shot down, because they released a version, like the one from the movie was a prop phone and it didn't like the real phone didn't do that. But they released a version for the Matrix Reloaded that was Neo's phone, and it would do the talk piece would shoot down. And it was like $600. And I remember thinking and scheming when I was a child, thinking, how can I get $600 without becoming a hooker? I don't think this is possible, but I'm really, really, really going to think about it. So I was like, oh, I want this phone. And now it sells for ridiculous amounts on the secondary market because everybody still wants it. As far as I know, it still works because the cell networks still have the lower bands are still active. I think it's a more stable phone, if I remember correctly, in terms of quality for its calls. It just means you can't use data and shit. Or if you can, you just can't do a lot of stuff on it. But since we're living in this neo cyberpunk era we call 2018, I would still rock that thing. Just the fact that I'd be cruising down the street in my wheelchair, I'd have my Matrix phone, I'd be like, yeah.
Nerd!
Yep. It's true. I would so rock that because that'd be so cool. I'm sorry. I love the Matrix stuff.
I would love to have the Razr again. Like, I wish that they would like redo. I honestly would love a smartphone that's a flip phone.
I'm surprised there isn't one available. I mean, I bet you there's probably some Chinese knockoff that does it, but I can't think of anything from any of the major manufacturers.
I will say my Razr was by far like my calls never dropped. I never had a problem with the phone. Yeah, the camera sucked. But that was like every phone back then. It's still a majority of them now, but my battery life on that thing was like ridiculous. Like I could go like days without plugging it in. So yeah, I don't know. I really would love to see like a new, and I'm tempted just to like pick one up just to see if I could still use it.
There was one time I remember my battery on my old Qualcomm would last for like, I swear to God, days. The battery on my iPhone 7 Plus will last maybe 12 hours. But I use the thing pretty heavily, so it's probably closer to 6, maybe 8. I don't know, man. And iPhone batteries you can't replace. That's one thing I do like about most Androids.
Well, that's changing.
The batteries.
That's changing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Over the last year and a half, they've pretty much gone
proprietary battery.
Well, they've gone to where it's like a unibody for a lot of the phones. So you can't change them out. Like my Galaxy S5, I could replace the battery anytime I feel like it. Like I actually have an extra battery that's charged just in case. But I mean, I work by my computer, so I keep it plugged in all day. Yeah. And then my car, I have a charger, so like I really don't like it's plugged in right now next to me. I mean, it's not good for the battery, but the battery sucks. So like at the same time, I don't have to worry about my battery going dead if I need to take it off the charger. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. Like I'm kind of like I've been, and I was talking to Mike Powers about the whole phone thing the other day on the previous episode of if I was going to get a new smartphone, what I would get. But the same token, like I don't know if that's necessarily like the best idea of getting another smartphone, because they cost, like for a good one, it costs between like $500 and $1,000.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about my wife right now. I was thinking about getting a new phone, and I wanted to get an iPhone because they're reliable, but I know the Google Pixels are quite good too. But it's just they're so expensive. Like,
They're
what do
all
I
expensive,
do?
and
Like,
it's terrible.
Like, I want a new iPhone, but I am not paying $1,500. I can get a good editing computer for that much money. Screw you.
Oh, I know.
I don't leave the house that much.
Well, and that's my boat too. Is like for the price of two of these phones, I could upgrade. I could buy another computer, fully
That's a
decked
tenth
out.
of my wheelchair. My electric wheelchair costs $13,000. That's like 10% of my wheelchair is a phone. No. I can use Skype to call people.
Well, my thing is when I can buy a brand new, laptop, Dell laptop, pretty middle of ground, nothing, fancy or anything for $500. And I have to pay like $1,000 for a piece of machinery that sits in my pocket. Like it's not worth it for me. That's why I've been going on 4 years on this phone and have not upgraded yet.
Here's one thing, and I want you to think about this because we briefly touched upon this. Imagine a cultural perspective on this. Let's say tomorrow all the smartphones stopped working. Now I want you to picture walking through a mall. How different that experience might be.
You'd actually have people talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the dumb phones would bring back the lost art of conversation. If anything, and this might be a little far-fetched, but follow me through the weeds here. There's a dating app called Tinder, and it's always swipe left if you like the person, swipe right if you don't, I think, or maybe it's the other way around. Either way, imagine how dating would change. I mean, sure, you could still text people, but it wouldn't be, hey, I'm going to send you nudes. Maybe you could. I don't know. But people would change. Like, the social landscape would change drastically. It would change overnight if smartphones just did away. Sure, there's tablets and everything, but let's just say the smart technology's gone. I would love to see what the world would be like in a year, just to see how things would change socially. I think it would benefit us a great deal. As you said, people would actually have to talk to each other because there's the nuance of conversation, the little details that you miss when saying, see, you'd actually have to laugh out loud as opposed to lol or yurt, which, man, I don't understand half the words these kids make up. Okay, lit, I understand. I don't know. Do people still say on fleek anymore? I don't know.
I have no idea. Like, to be honest, like I see a lot of these different acronyms now, and I have to Google them because I have no idea what they are.
Urban Dictionary is yo friend.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's I don't know. It's strange. And since we're talking about flip phones, Samsung has a concept for 2019 of a new flip phone that's a smartphone. Because they're using the it's kind of that bendable AMOLED screen.
Yeah.
And they have they're expected to make a release. It's supposed to have a Qualcomm processor, like everything nowadays, more RAM, and it's going to have the two 4.2 inch displays, dual rear cameras, basically your normal set of things that they would have on a flip phone. However, the only thing is like it's like a leaked image, so there's no telling if it's true. But Motorola has been working on something, I guess. Motorola executives are insisting that the Motorola Razr V4 handset might be coming out in 2019. And it's funny thing of talking about the Razr phone, the V3 that we had on way back when in the dumb phone era. It's got, how on the front where they have the smartphone buttons and have the time and the date on the front. So that part's is a screen and on this, concept that they have. And then it folds out, and then you have the full screen on the interior, but it holds that old Razr style to the device. So it's got that lip at the bottom, just like the old phone.
That's interesting. I mean, I'd be curious to see what this thing would be like hands-on. I'm pretty sure we'll see it at the Consumer Electronics Show if it's real in January, or at least there'll be some kind of tech anyway.
Yeah, and I'm kind of interested because it's, they're saying that it would have like the, multi-display. They would have the Qualcomm 6 gigs of RAM. And it would probably be expensive. But if I was going to throw down any money for this device, if I was going to throw down money for any of these phones, like an obscene amount, it would probably be this one because you could fold it up.
That might get me to move away from iPhone. Maybe, and that says a lot. And
if you had basic Android on it, like not the proprietary crap that like Samsung puts on their machines, just like most of the Motorola's that are out now, if they had that, I would for sure jump ship. Like I would get this device, like hands down. This is what I would get if I had an option. So I mean, I don't know. It might behoove me to wait. I don't know, but because I don't know if this is an actual possibility for 2019 or if this is all still like up in the air. But I know that this would be the defining factor of if I were to jump ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would love to have a smartphone that folds up and goes in my pocket the size of my wallet, or thinner than my wallet, but it would fold up.
It still has the same horsepower, basically.
Yeah. I would be down for that, and then it would be significant of enough change for me to warrant wanting to do this in the first place. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of that mentality with the phone situation that I think that we've come to this era of some people are going to start going back to dumb phones.
Because they're hip like that.
Yeah, because it'll be a status thing. Oh, I've got a dumb phone because it's better.
Because I'm just cool. Look at me.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't use any of the apps. I mean, for the most part, I don't really download anything. I use it mostly to check my email.
I use mostly the camera, my email, and I chat on Discord and I play a few games. Truth be told, that's why this iPhone, as long as the iOS doesn't screw me, which it will, I have 256 gigabytes of storage. I can record entire movies on this thing. Like, hell, I could shoot movies with this thing if I so want. I think my camera's 4K. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's 1080p. But I bought it with in mind of doing it as a vlog camera. The fact that I can do Facebook Live from it, I think is pretty impressive. I'm just impressed with what the tech can and can't do. But that's almost a discussion for a different day.
Yes. So, moving on, the media industry. As some of you know, I used to work in it. and I hope to again.
And myself, I have got training in the media industry. I guess I'm what you call a podcaster / influencer. I'm considered an influencer in the quote unquote geek Canadian media sphere when it comes to video games. Like I myself get review copies of a lot of games. I get a lot of movies early, a lot of television shows. Steve and I both have a relationship with Netflix and stuff like that. So we are in the media. I myself have training, as some of you may know, from Niagara College and Mohawk in radio, television presentation, and public relations. So I do know the media sphere quite well. I've been working in and around it since 2007. So Steve pitched this idea to me this afternoon about getting into radio and media is hard. And specifically, I really want to talk about this, not to discourage people, but to realistically set expectations. Because I see a lot of people who say, oh, I want to be this next YouTube success, or I want to be the next Twitch streamer. Because people see people like Ninja, who rakes in $500,000 a month streaming.
You know what's funny? I've never heard of that guy up until like about 2 weeks ago when somebody was talking about it on Twitter.
Yeah, it's crazy. People like that make millions of dollars. Or a more contemporary example of a YouTuber you're probably more familiar with is PewDiePie. Now, he's had his own share of controversies and whatnot over the last few years by saying the wrong thing at the wrong time and taking, it's just a joke, guys. Or another contemporary example who people love to hate, and arguably you probably should, Logan Paul, or the Paul brothers, or you might remember the Fine brothers, who try to trademark the whole blank so-and-so react.
Yeah, which was
whole debacle.
Yeah, that was a whole Tool moment on their behalf.
Yeah, so getting into the media and radio, do I recommend it? If you want my professional opinion, if you're going to do radio, you do it because you love it. Getting into media in terms of television, don't do it because you want to be famous. Now the reason I'm giving this approach, I have to kind of give this with a preface. I came into this industry for the wrong reasons. I came into this wanting to be famous. Did I achieve a degree of fame? Somewhat. I would argue I'm notable in geek circles, but not much beyond that. And I got that mostly because of my association with another website whose name I'm not going to mention here. But eventually, that changed through the course of talking with my professors. I wanted to cover news. I hunger for news. I want the truth. Investigative journalism is sort of one of my talents that I think I still have. Not as much as I used to when I was back in school, but I digress. Point of the matter is, with Twig, for example, the other podcast that I work on with Steve sometimes, is I believe information yearns to be free. Information should be provided to the people free of charge, no matter what. Should I be paid for what I do? It would be nice, but I'll never charge people for it. That being said, if I was given charge of a newsroom, I would love that. To me, hunting the truth down, information, getting unbiased reporting is what I crave. That's why when I look at pundits on CNN or Fox News, one leans very left, one leans very right. Somewhere in the middle is the truth of all that. And it makes me upset the fact that reporting slants one way or the other, and it's difficult to see the forest for the trees, if you kind of get what I'm saying. Or maybe that's the other way. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, point of the matter is, I want to stay in this for the news. Plus, getting all the free stuff is nice because I get a chance to review it for you and tell you whether it's worth it or a piece of crap. But that also being said, things in the media landscape have changed so much. Because I know people who go to school for digital media right now are going with the intention of being streamers or YouTubers. But for every person who makes it, there's 10,000 people knocking at the door whose skills are just as good as yours, whose content is just as good as yours, and can pump it out faster even at times. It's a highly competitive landscape, and I don't know whether people are getting into it for the right reasons.
Well, and I think that that's why there's a lot of burnout in it, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you watch, a lot of people are like, I'm going to be a podcaster to be internet famous. And it's like,
you don't want that necessarily.
It could go either way. And what I mean by that is the numbers on this show are not as well as they used to be. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because, they've changed how the metric standards work. That could be because people don't like the show or like things that I've said in the past. It could be also the fact that
I'm Canadian and they hate me.
Or it could just be because of the direction that the show's traversed over the years and changed, and they just liked the original rendition because it was new. But that being said, it's still kind of... I started this whole podcasting journey because, one, I always wanted to work in radio and broadcast. It had nothing to do with the fact I was trying to get money. Now, would it be nice? Yes. Do at times. I think that I would love to monetize more of the content or put things behind a paywall. Yes, I do. But at the same time, like it would have to be something substantial for me to even bother with that. And it would have to be something that's completely new. It would not be something that I've been doing for years for free. And if I was able to get into podcasting professionally again, like I once was, there's a variety of things I'd love to try and love to do, especially with a team to work with and kind of bounce ideas off of, and being able to produce different kinds of content that I either don't have the time or the funds to do at this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so hard to produce content now because, like, you hit it right on the head there. You need a team. You need resources. You look at a website like, say, The Nerdist or Geek and Sundry. Those are their jobs because there's a corporation behind them backing them. Me and Steve are hobbyists. Like, our podcasts are powered by love, labor, and occasionally some freebies.
Pretty much. Yeah, and I haven't got much in the way of freebies lately, but that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, Twig is a labor of love, for example, and I do it because I love entertaining people, and I genuinely do, and that's, getting into this is, like I said, I think part of my reason I don't like a lot of YouTubers is because they're doing it to be famous. They're not doing it because they love the art of entertaining. And I'm not saying you should go busk on a corner and sing for your supper. I kind of consider podcasters, and this is going to sound really weird, we're like the modern day bards. Do we get paid sometimes? Yeah. But bards love to entertain. They tell stories. They relay the news. They are entertainers at heart. And if you want to get in the entertainment industry, radio or television, you have to understand, are you doing it for the art? Are you doing it for fame? Like, some people can get famous by just being a beautiful person, and they become Instagram models, and they get product deals flying at them left, right, and center. I know a couple of people that are Instagram famous, and they don't make a lot of direct money, but they do get a lot of endorsements, or they get free products. Sometimes they'll get paid to, hey, can you follow my page and write a review? But even that's something that can be fallen behind too, because there are false Instagram people that are famous because you can buy followers. Like, there's Twitter famous, and in this era of Reddit, do you really want that?
Well, and you can do that with any platform. I mean, you can go on Fiverr and you can pay somebody to boost your podcast in the Apple charts, which the Apple charts are a joke anyway, but because there's no real standard in that. It's kind of, you can pay your way to get to the top, or you could just have these same shows that show up in there every week. And it's not a true, up and new and noteworthy. It's not like it doesn't actually cycle through their whole catalog. It's just whoever happens to be their top tier picks. And that's kind of like the same boat as like the iHeartRadio podcast awards. They announced their, the first ever podcast awards, exclusive at iHeartRadio is going to be taking place. And there's been podcast awards around for 14 years now.
Yeah.
Podcastawards.com, the 14th annual People's Choice Podcast Awards, it just happened this year, and they rang off the winners at Podcast Movement in September. So, like, I don't know, like, there's a lot of invasion from the radio industry, but they're trying to say that, oh, it's a $1 billion industry, blah blah blah, and they're like, they don't really understand podcasting. It's not about a quick fix to get this money. It's about the journey and about the message that you're conveying, and
exactly.
They seem to miss that.
I mean, a lot of radio stations that I've noticed just repackage stuff from their morning shows and just put it in a podcast form. Basically, it takes a guy 20 minutes to edit it together, slap some ads in front of it, and now you can say, the so-and-so podcast show brought to you by so-and-so's organic turkey bacon or something.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what majority of traditional radio does. And they, having been on that side of it, because I worked for a online radio station broadcast network that does like television on through their own network, and does radio and does podcasts. All the podcasts were repackaged podcasts from the radio broadcasts, minus the live radio. well, minus the live radio ads that would be on terrestrial, and they put dynamic ad insertion points during those empty spaces on the podcast to fill that void. And while it does work, some of that content could have easily been chopped down, and they could have easily made it like a shorter show instead of being like a repackage of the entire show. They could have I mean, because they had daily episodes, so like it was kind of that boat. And they did have some podcasters that were syndicated, which didn't do as well because they weren't on that, live radio feed, and they weren't the main personalities of the network. But I don't know, like I saw them as more like taking care of the podcast itself, like the show and like their message, whereas the other one was like, how many and I guess that's kind of the boat I fell into for a minute, working for that for so long, is it was how many messages and how many news topics can I talk about in my allotted slot. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like part of the downfall of radio into podcasting, is because they don't understand the space.
Yeah, I mean, with podcasts, you really have to, in my opinion, make the most of your time. Because with morning radio, people are tuning in and out over the course of, say, a morning show, which is, say, 4 hours. With podcasts, you're going to hold someone's attention for maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, if you're lucky.
Well, they actually say that the amount of time, the average over, X amount of podcasts ranging from, 10 minutes to, 3 hours. The longest that people generally listen is about 38 to 43 minutes.
Okay, so about your average television show length, which is something that I definitely see. Like, for example, with Twig, I always try to go close to an hour. Usually we go about an hour 15, hour 30, depending. I figure if I want to be as long as a horror movie or a shitty action movie, because I figure that's how long it's going to take you to get to work, depending, and that's there and back, depending. So we're always with you in your car or when you're working out. At least that's a lot of the feedback I've gotten.
Yeah, and that's the feedback I've gotten. I've gotten feedback about shows being too long or shows being not long enough, and it's kind of difficult to ride the line there. But I mean, I've kind of come to this conclusion that the show's as long as it needs to be. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to go on for hours on end. And my general rule of thumb is I won't go over an hour and a half.
Yeah, same here. That's my hard rule as well.
Because to be honest, like I'll tune out even on my own stuff or other people's, like even when I'm subscribed to shows on iTunes, like there's a majority of shows I'm listening to right now because I work in an environment where I work in front of my computer. They're playing like Pandora out in the middle of the store, and I'm in the back, and so I just plug my headphones in and listen to just different podcasts. Just one, so I can kind of get a vibe of how other podcasts run and what they do, and to kind of refresh myself on it, because I've been out of that general listener loop for so long. I'm trying to get a variety of different shows under my belt. Just to
I am the worst podcast listener. I don't listen to any outside of morning radio, which I know gets repackaged into a podcast. I am the worst podcast listener you can imagine. Frankly, it comes down to time. But
yeah, I mean, it's
sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, like, it kind of just. I feel like if you don't listen to new podcasts, you kind of don't fully get the taste of like where podcasts are going. Mm-hmm. So I feel like in order to evolve your own show, you have to be listening to some of the shows of that current time, that you're producing for, because, things I produced 9-10 years ago don't apply today. Like they don't, not only do the topics not stick, but the way that it was handled doesn't stick, because it's a totally different social environment.
I guess with me, I model the Twig show after morning radio now, where we still have our news, weird news, and now we have a segment called Satan's Pantry where we try a new weird food each week, usually with disastrous results. I've eaten some real shit on that show. My God, Steve, it's not worth it anymore.
I've listened. I actually listened to an episode. I actually listened to an episode earlier today, and the only thing that I had a critique on, which I don't know if you want me to say that on air or if you want me to save it.
It's fine.
I felt like the review should have been much shorter.
Oh yeah, because sometimes we just keep going.
Well, and it was, and this is no slight against Alex, but it was.
I knew it was going to be him. I knew it.
It was way too long. Like, just in general, like I find that with people's attention spans, it's like, tell me, the who, what, why, and where, and like all the W's that they taught you in school and they teach you in broadcasting. You teach me why I should care about this, and then just kind of leave it in the air and give your brief opinion. But I feel like if you're doing it in a segment show, it should be shorter.
Okay.
But I also realized that on my own from having done that in a previous week when I was trying to segment this show. And so like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of playing around with the formula. I mean, whatever works for your listeners kind of thing. But
yeah,
at the same time,
I mean, things evolve over time. And that's part of the reason why getting into podcasting or media and radio is so hard, because the industry changes so often. I mean, myself, specifically getting into radio specific stuff, you have to keep up with the music and the formats of your music. And I've noticed this very, very distinctly. Canadian rock radio is so different from American rock radio. You guys have such a different style of DJing, of doing talk bits, of basically communicating with your listeners and building community. A lot of the stations up here are not manned 24/7, or if there is somebody, there may be in the newsroom, there's an engineer, maybe someone doing maybe a satellite shift, which means they're just doing, hey guys, it's 3:00 in the morning, you're listening to so-and-so, it's currently 12 degrees outside, that sort of bullshit.
Well,
whereas listening to radio, like the radio station I listen to and I love, and I'll worship these guys till the end of the earth, is a station out of Philly called WMMR 93.3. And they are live 24/7. They interact, they do contests literally 24 hours around the clock. And there's something about building community. Sorry, Steve, I keep cutting you off.
Oh, no, it's fine. What I was going to say is, like, majority of the ones that are here in my local Michigan area are that way as well. And just some of the things I've learned while interviewing with a lot of these companies, because I have gotten several interviews and just not, for whatever reason, just not gotten anything past it. I mean, I've had ones where I've thought have gone really well, and then just they'll ghost me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll never hear from them again, even if I send them an email like, "Hey, what's going on? Am I still on the loop?" And then I'll just never hear from them again. And which is just really odd. But some of the things that I've learned though is that they want people that can handle the talent and handle the podcast side of things, but at the same time they don't fully understand the podcast division of it, like or how to make it work within traditional radio, because they're thinking traditional radio terms, not modern terms, because they also make the talent have to blog, write X amount of articles per week. They make like these people have to motivate, and edit their stuff. They make them have to do like live streams. They make them have to do like, just various things to draw attention to the talent and the station. And so like they have to wear many hats now. And so it's like, it's kind of a different landscape that, they're having to build themselves up almost to the point that like celebrities do when they guest star on like talk shows.
Yeah.
But they're doing it by themselves.
Some of the DJs I follow from Philly, they do a lot of interaction with their community. So I wonder if that's how they get around having to blog and microblog, but they do a lot of community involvement where they go out, say, hey, go check out this car dealership or go do this, that, and the other thing. But
well, they're paid to do those.
Yeah, they're paid to do that. But there's also other things like one of the guys I really like produces a morning show, and it's a public affairs show that airs at 6:30 in the morning. So I can only imagine what the listenership numbers are like. But sometimes there's some really damn good radio. It just seems out of nowhere. I guess it's to fulfill some FCC requirement. You have to provide so much local airtime, I guess. But that being said, the market is, you have to understand what you're going into. And specifically, if anybody listening wants to pursue a career in radio, I'm going to say this. Love the music, love the format, be adaptable. You're going to run into a lot of, and I hate to say this, Steve, because we're trying to keep the show as PG-13 as possible. You're going to run into a lot of fuckhead program directors who want to tell you what to do and how to run your shift. If you're entertaining, if your talk bits are very general, if you know your music, you can make beautiful broadcast. You will entertain people. Your phone lines will light up. You'll build a community, not just on Twitter, but with your audience that was willing to call in and talk with you. Like, one of the best people that I know who builds their radio up so much is a guy, once again, going back to Philly. His name is Jackie Bam Bam. Or another guy called Lockdown. He's _ Radio Kevin, I think, on Twitter. These guys will talk to you. If they got the time between songs, they'll get a chance to know you, or if you email them, they'll get a chance to know you, but they also know their music. They know their playlist back to forward. And they can give you interesting anecdotes. And particularly, if you're willing to start small and be ambitious in a small radio market, I know a guy who cut a really creative demo, and he got hired in a really small radio station, and now he works for one of the larger stations in Toronto now. He's their digital content producer. That can work well, too. If you're willing to he took his podcast experience from what we're doing now and turned it into a career at a large radio station. Now, admittedly, he's producing little things that I think are really fantastic. He does something called Behind the Vinyl, where they talk to an artist like, hey, you did this album back in 1994. What was it like? What was the #1 single? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like a 5-minute thing. Sometimes it's longer. But if you're willing to put in the work and know your music, or know particularly what your format you're going is for, say you're going into talk radio, produce something kind of not fun, but serious. Or if you want to do something fun, you could do that too. Like, hey, we're going to talk about the history of, I don't know, bubblegum. Say the town has a history with bubblegum. You know, it's a thing. Or say you have a particularly famous political person. Produce a focus on them and say, hey, be willing to put it together, and you might get a job just by saying, hey, here's 5 minutes I did on Senator so-and-so. Maybe you got people who grew up around him as interview subjects, people on the streets. You never know. That kind of initiative can really show a radio station that, hey, you really want this job. You want to make it more than a job. You want to be it a career. And I think that's the big reason I want people to understand when you go into media and into radio or any kind of entertainment, it has to be about the art. It has to be about conveying something important, being more than a paycheck. Don't go, if you want to work in radio and be a paycheck, work in promotions, work in sales. There's always a need for people in sales in radio. I can tell you that right now. There's always a need to be someone who wants to work in the editing department. And even still, that's creative too. Like cutting together commercials and doing something fun, that's something that like you can do too. If you don't get on air, your commercials can make it on air, and some people will remember those jingles forever.
See, and that's the thing is I personally want to be a creative person, and so and I you know, don't get me wrong, I would love to help make decisions and do things in that nature too, but you know, I want to do something with like digital content. I want to, edit. I eventually want to be on the air of something, I mean, and if not, I've got the podcast, but it's not a big thing. I tried to do the YouTube thing a long time ago, and I decided that really wasn't for me because
you couldn't pay me to go on YouTube. No friggin' way.
Well, and it wasn't even like me visually. Like I've done both. I've done me visually, and I've done, voiceover with gameplay. And to be honest, like to me, like it doesn't fit my personality. And so I'm going to try to do live video thing again. And I've got a green screen, and I just have to figure out what I want to do with it. But I don't know. I think that it's a very difficult business to get into.
It is. It is absolutely one of the hardest businesses I've ever come across. And I've tried to go into computers. I've tried to go into television behind the scenes, which is just as competitive, if not more so in some ways. It's not who you know, it's what you know. And even then, it's cutthroat.
Yeah,
myself,
that's very true.
I mean, myself, if I had to choose one career path, if I had to leave podcasting behind, I want to do community-focused radio. And I wouldn't mind even being in a small market, like less than 50,000 people. I want to be not that, hey, that's Mike on the billboard. I want to be like, hey guys, it's drive time. I'm going to be with you from noon till 4 o'clock, and we're going to play some of the best music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Let's rock and roll. Let's open up my prize box. Let's see what I got ready to roll for you today. Hey, I got concert tickets to the farewell tour of Kiss. You want them? Call me at whatever. That's what I want to do. And I think just talking right now, you can hear that in my voice. That's the presentation side of me coming out. Radio, talk radio, or music-based radio is it's my jam. Because I don't, as fun as it might be to talk about geek stuff every single day, I think that would burn me out. Like, I don't know how certain podcasters can put out an hour or 2 hours of content every single day and not hate their life. With music, I don't know. I guess to me it's about presenting something different. To me, when I listen to MMR, for example, again, I love you, Philly, I hear probably about an 8-hour loop of music. Sometimes some repeats. Like, believe me, the amount of times I hear ghost rats in a day would drive you crazy. Or Metallica spit out the bone, but that's just their particular music director. But anyway, side note aside. It's something about bringing the music to life for people, to entertain. And I think that's where I'd most be happy, is bringing music to people, bringing something entertaining like that. And sure, geek stuff is fun and everything, but you know what? Maybe that's not where I should be all the time. I guess I'm more of a music guy than I thought I was, but I'm never going to stop giving up the podcasting thing as long as people are willing to listen about me ramble about who would win between a Power Ranger and a Ghostbuster. Why the hell not, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same mindset. Like I enjoy talking. So, which is really odd, and I discovered the knack for it really a long time ago, like doing the podcast. But even if I were to do it in person, I could do it now. I know because, I did it at that Star Trek event. So,
yeah, I mean, I love doing personal appearances. When I used to get invited to conventions a lot, I'd be in front of a panel in front of probably a couple of hundred people. Like, if I'm filling a room and they're just listening to me talk, that was a lot of fun. I loved that live vibe. I totally dug that. But I could see how that could get exhausting, too, for certain people. But I guess to swing this conversation around, we mentioned this is hard. And the thing that'll make it hard is your passion, your reason why you're doing it. And I know I keep hammering that home because I want you people that are listening. If there's any impressionable listeners out there, you got to follow your passions, but sometimes your passions don't always pay the bills. I guess the best piece of advice I can say is make sure you're in this for the right reasons. and be willing to sacrifice a lot. But if you do, and you get lucky, you can land yourself into some marvelously rewarding work. And if you don't happen to land that job at the radio station or whatever, your little podcast, your little YouTube channel, or whatever it is, you can be making somebody happy. As long as you're fulfilling yourself creatively and artistically, then I say keep on doing it.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, if this were for money, I would have quit a long time ago. But it's definitely not. There are times where I feel like I need a break, and I just refuse to take it because
I always make it a point to take off December into mid-January every year so I don't get burned out.
See, I've never taken any time off other than when I've actually been on vacation. And even then, I'm like, I can't tune it out. I'll have something pre-recorded.
Same here.
Which I think that on this, it's probably as good of a place as any to announce that I'm going to have more guest hosts, kind of episodes. Well, I'm going to pre-record as many days as I possibly can this month of November.
It's
so that
good.
in December, what's that?
It's good, so you can get ahead of it too, and that's another reason, or not a reason. That's a trait. If you're in media, being really well organized will really help you. If you're piss poor time management, your life will suck.
Yep. And I've gone back to doing my Google Docs for my notes on various things when I use it for something. I even go to the point of trying to go through like my Twitter likes and things like that. And but anyways, I'm going to use these pre-recorded episodes that I'm doing all like as much as I can. So that I can take off a few weeks in December and not lose my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to pre-record some stuff with Alex and the rest of Twig, and I'm going to play through my backlog of stuff, because I really want to play The Witcher, and I'm 2 years behind on playing that, so that would be something I'd like to do. I'd like to put some more hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'd like to play Fallout Vault 76 to completion, so...
Yeah, I haven't played too many video games, but lately, but that's more so just because I don't have time. I get home and I'm tired. So I guess like goals for Geek Life. If your goal is to be in radio and podcasting and media in general, we've kind of talked about that.
Yep.
My other goal is I've recently gotten the taste of wanting to get back into voiceover. So it's, but I want to do it like for real.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that it's not an easy journey either, just as much as regular radio. So yeah, that's going to be a journey on its own. But yeah, we'll see.
I guess my goal for Geek Life, and this is a subtle plug, I'm working on a Patreon, which I hope to launch early next year, called Bard Looking for Job. And it's to be a professional storyteller. I don't know whether I want to work in the RPG industry proper, like writing books or writing rule sets and crunch and fluff and everything. But I like the idea of creating adventures, of DMing for hire, if you will. Say you don't have a group of dungeon masters around you to help set you on your adventures through Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms. I can do that for you. Stuff like that. So I guess one of my goals is just to be literally to be a bard. That's what I really want to do, except I don't play a friggin' lute and don't have a stupid hat. I really want to do the entertainment thing. And I guess I was watching something. I can't remember what it was, but it showed a guy in a tavern sitting by this roaring hearth. Or, yeah, I think that's what it's called, hearth, whatever. And he's sitting there talking. People are just listening to him tell this tale. And I want that to be me, except in modern times. And I guess I really am via Twig and Terrible Warriors. People listen to the stories and the worlds that I create, and I dig that. And as I've said before, I didn't fancy myself a creative person until a couple of years ago when I started to get a lot of feedback on it. People saying, man, you're really awesome at this. You should keep going. And it's very encouraging. It's very much a geek goal to create something epic and monumental. And right now I'm working on something for the other podcast, Terrible Warriors, right now, called the Cambridge Chronicles, which is sort of the side project. And I'm running a world called Shadowrun, and it's one of my favorite fictional universes. Basically, imagine D&D but with guns and more magic, I guess, if you wanted to put a bit of a slant on it. So imagine a troll with a friggin' sniper rifle, I guess.
Okay.
And I'm trying to create this magnum opus where I've created Toronto in the year 2054, the neon-soaked streets of Toronto, and political intrigue, corporate espionage, and all sorts of cool things for my characters. And one of my goals is to bring Shadowrun or cyberpunk back into the forefront. I mean, we live in a cyberpunk society right now where information is a weapon. Culture is so radicalized now that we, short of having cybernetic limbs, which I will soon have in the future when I get my prosthetic limb, I will be a cyborg. I've literally become Shadowrun. So I guess a goal for Geek Life is to just bring cyberpunk storytelling back a little bit. Maybe bring the William Gibson-esque worlds of Neuromancer and the Difference Engine, though I think he wrote that. Anyway, stuff like that, and just be a little bit more well-rounded in that respect. I mean, another thing I'd love to accomplish for a geek goal in life is I really want to be knowledgeable on one subject, and I guess I've taken that subject to be role-playing games, which is memorizing a lot of math, and I'm frankly terrible at math, but it's finding the tricks in math and looking at the different rule systems, because it's kind of funny. I can now see when people say this system was designed in the 1980s, this was designed in the 90s, this is a modern RPG, and it's so fascinating to see how the parts all flow together. Like, do you remember that scene in The Hangover where Alan, Zach Galifianakis' character, has all the numbers floating around his head? I feel like that when I look at role-playing math. I'm thinking, I get this. Holy crap, I get this. I see how this functions. I see how this part works with part A and part B, and just it's fascinating. And I guess that's the thing. I really want the goal for Geek Life, my Geek Life, is to entertain and educate people, to bring something a little bit new to them. Because if I enjoy it and I love it, maybe I can spread that joy to somebody else. Because I've had people like my friend Derek spread his love of Power Rangers to me. Now I've collected most of the Mighty Morphin era Zords. I've got the Legacy Power line of figures, at least all the Mighty Morphin figures. I even got a Lord Draken from my buddy Linkara. Thank you, Lewis. You're a friggin' superstar. And stuff like that. And I'm starting to get into Japanese Super Sentai. So I'm learning so much more about another culture. And you learn things about their culture not just through their superheroes, because it goes further back and how their medieval culture influenced it, how some of their folk tales have influenced and stuff like that. Like reading up about Kamen Rider, it's not just guy gets signs buckle, fights monster of the week. There's so much more to it, stuff like that. There's like one of them where they're like a detective or something like that. It's weird. But I guess to sum it up succinctly, my goal for Geek Life is to entertain, educate, and bring a depth of knowledge to myself I did not possess before. I wish to be more than what I was when I came in.
Yeah, I think that kind of resonates with myself as well. I think I've gotten this kind of knack of I'd rather be informing people and teaching them something rather than just kind of I hate this television show because, or I like this television show because, like, I don't know, something of meaning.
I want to be. I mean, one of the greatest moments I've ever gotten. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it on this show before. Is I was telling a Terrible Warriors story a couple of years ago, and it was in the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion. I was using the GURPS set of rules. Good system, complicated, but good system. Point of the matter is, I had my friend Dr. Tara Watt, who's Toronto's greatest supervillain, my friend Erica, Scotty, and my friend Julian. I had 3 of them on the verge of tears, crying in a room no bigger than most people's kitchens on a Sunday afternoon when nothing is wrong, but to tell an emotional story, to drag that emotion out of somebody. That is what I crave. I crave emotion. I love being able to tell stories that are that potent and powerful, or to scare someone. We did this with Ravenloft. Had people unsettled thinking, oh man, what's going to jump out of the darkness next? Why did that doll move? What's whispering in my ear? And I'm just speaking words as if we're talking right now, telling a story. And that's where I think I want my geek goals to be. I mean, because of certain difficulties I have ahead of me, will I ever work in radio? Realistically, I don't know. Because of physical limitations, my skills may be out of whack, but I'm never going to lose the podcast. But that being said, never going to give up. Always going to be entertaining, always talking, always telling stories in some capacity.
Yep, I think that you pretty well nailed that one right on the head. My eventual goals is to do voiceover. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun doing podcast roles and fan dubs and audio plays and things like that. But if it ever happens, it happens. But if not, then whatever. But I'm currently working towards that. I'm working towards getting into radio, like traditional radio and television. So just because I enjoy the process, and I enjoy the being able to make a difference and entertain and inform. And so that's kind of why I want to get into it. It has nothing to do with like money. I mean, yeah, I want enough to live on, but I don't want to do it to get rich.
Just cover my bills, cover my travel. I'm generally pretty happy. I know I'm not going to get rich playing D&D.
Yeah.
But hey, Geek and Sundry, if you're hiring, man, if you can find a way to not put me on camera and just give me a voice, I'm good to go, man. Any day of the week, I'm good to go.
Yes, put him on camera. In the background.
I'll be a hand puppet.
Give him a CGI
yes!
character.
But yeah, so that pretty much about wraps it up here for us here on Altered Geek. Hopefully you've enjoyed our conversation as we've talked about dumb phones. Would we ever go back to a society that knew how to talk to each other? The difficulties of getting into radio media, some of the reasons, why it's hard, why we think it's hard, and why you maybe should or shouldn't get into it. Just follow your passions. And then finally, we just talked about some of the geek goals we have set up for ourselves, be them life's ambitions or something a little bit more simple. We've definitely bared our souls to you in this particular episode of Altered Geek. As always, if you want to get in contact with the show, Steve, if they wanted to do that, they would do.
They would at us on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Altered Geek, or myself at SCP-21.
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BirdmanDodd. You can also email me, Mike, at thisweekingeek.net. Always looking forward to interacting with you. We're also trying out something new. We haven't got it quite figured out just yet, but if you're on Discord, we have a Discord server where perhaps you can come out and talk with us. I'm on there constantly. So if Steve wants to post up the Discord in the episode notes, he can do that. So be sure to be following us on there. I reply to any and all questions. And so hopefully next time when Steve has his next guest host in, they'll be talking about a variety of topics, both deep, insightful, and entertaining to you, the listener. We always welcome your interactions with the show, so please feel free. Also, please feel free to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. It helps us out, lets us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and if, in fact, we are worth your time, but I think we are. So until next time, listeners, I've been Mike the BirdmanDodd, joined with Steve Megatron Phillips. And Steve, take us out.
So until next time, get altered, get eeky.
Get eeky, yes!
Get eeky. It's not Halloween. So until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.